the season, it looks as though those spuds are coming out of the ground all right.
Yes, they are now. We've been very patiently waiting for the rain to stop and then the ground to dry out enough to get digging, so it's all guns blazing now.
Your parish covers a fair bit of dirt. I mean, you're in Hororata now, but you've got other areas. Has it been wet right over?
Yes, it's been wet everywhere, from Amberley, Southbridge, up here where we're trying to dig at the moment, so yeah, we're wanting to work on all fronts at once at the moment.
But they are coming out in good order?
Yes, coming out in good order. We've had rain, but not too much. There's nothing drowned or anything ghastly like that. So, I think the rain's come gently, so the ground hasn't gone all hard or anything silly like that. So once it's drying out now, they're coming out very good.
And the other thing is, obviously, you've sprayed them off or whatever, so they're not still growing.
Oh, exactly, yes. And likes of this paddock here, it had a wee roundup over it about 4 weeks ago. There's just a little bit of grass struck in there, and normally we'd have them dug and it wouldn't be a problem, but I could just see if the wet weather lingered on, it was a good move to get that cleaned out.
You're starting to turn to religion a wee bit.
Yes, yes.
Tell me about the machine, because obviously the stones around this area, and none of the stones go into the packet.
Yes, well, just as well too. They'd be a bit crunchy, wouldn't they? Yeah, so we go through the ground at planting time and separate out the stones and the worst of the clods and get them out of the area that we're going to grow into, and then when the harvester comes through, it's reasonably stone and clod free. But in this paddock here, there's actually some shingle patches, and we've probably been a bit greedy as far as some of the areas we've gone into with the planter, and going through the harvester we're just dealing with a bit of small stone in place there, but the machine's making a pretty good job now. It's dried out of separating that out, and have a couple of people up there to get the last few bits out.
I was just going to say, hence your staff that are sitting up on the top there.
Yes, I mean, half the time they're up there with hands in their pocket, but when you hit a wee shingle patch, there's just a bit there to get out, and rather than slow down too much, you want to keep the speed up, so you have the extra ones up there just for that short time.
Looking back over the season, been disease free?
Yeah, it's been all over the place, like particularly this paddock here. They were setting up to be yet another very good yielding crop, and we had a nice gentle spring. Everything was looking good, but be fair to say they probably got a bit too soft in the tops, and then with all that strong nor'west we had through January, there was probably one wind too much for this crop here, and it blew quite a bit of the tops around too much, and the yield's down because of it, probably down 15% at least from what we'd be looking to get.
So next year, where do you have to shift to stop getting those horrible little scabby things on your spuds?
Well, we don't really get any of those horrible little scabby things.
I know you don't, that's why I'm asking you how you avoid them.
Yeah, so no, it's just about having good crop rotations and getting into ground that hasn't had potatoes for as long as possible. Never's usually the best, but that's sometimes asking a bit much. You do have to come back to paddocks again, but we've already been looking further out on this property as to which paddocks will be lining up for next year that have had quite a good interval since potatoes, if they've had potatoes in at all.
Because that's how you do avoid it, isn't it?
Yes, especially for washing quality potatoes. We're after that really good skin finish, and often the best way to achieve that is fresh, clean ground, and also a little bit of notice of what's been in the rotation leading up to it.
Other crops you're looking at?
Yeah, well, pumpkins at the moment. We're full noise into the pumpkin harvest. It's been held up a bit with the wet weather like everything else, so daylight today with a southerly wind, it's very good for that, because we don't like to pick the pumpkins up until they're actually dry, because they get all smudgy and get the dirt all around them, and it does seem to have an effect on their keeping quality. So daylight today, perfect for that. So I think we've got about another 5 maybe days to go to get that wrapped up, which will be good. And
then you've got your broccoli as well?
Yes, so we've been reasonably successful so far on the planting front at getting the plants in the ground in between the wet intervals. We seem to get a rain once a week, and just before the next one we get out there.
You get them in there.
We sneak them in, and we're planting up at Amberley at the moment, and the ground varies a bit up there, so there's some areas up there that once they get wet they tend to stay wet, and trying to get a fertiliser truck on or trying to work the ground, we're starting to have to work around parts of the paddock, and that just makes things a bit more difficult, but nothing like a good challenge.
You've always had challenges, haven't you?
Yeah, oh, that's growing, isn't it? Everything's different every year, and different soil types and areas you're working on, so if it wasn't challenging it'd be boring, and if it'd be boring we wouldn't be doing it, I guess.
Well, you'd probably have less grey hair.
Yeah.
But People are saying that because of the bad weather, the price of veggies is going to go up. Yes? No?
Yes, well, that's been reflected right now with the price of broccoli. We've been cutting reasonably good volumes all the way through, but the wet weather has impacted some of the growing areas in the North Island. They've had trouble there with head rot and things like that, with just too much wet weather for too long, and it's something that we run the risk of getting down here as well. But so broccoli prices have firmed up as a result of that, but that can change again just as quickly. Potato prices, I'm hearing that the prices should be good and steady this year. I think the processors are after all the potatoes that they can get this year, and that has a big impact on our fresh market, because if there's such a big area and volume growing for that market, that if there's a small surplus there or a small amount that they're struggling to place and they come over into the fresh market, it can have a big impact on that, being the smaller of the two. But pumpkins will probably be more realistically priced this year. I mean that as far as the prices for us should be better. Last year the prices were very low on account of some big yields in the North Island, and I think overall some of the crops, particularly the South Island crops, kept quite well last year because of the warm, dry growing season. This year the Nelson crops haven't been so good, and I think they'll be finished up fairly soon, so it's setting up a good stage for hopefully a healthy selling season down here this year. But some of our yields are back a bit on account of the weather, with a slow start in the spring and then a bit of a sticky part at the end, so I'm not sure how well they'll keep this year on account of the conditions they've grown through.
Now, you're known for selling those baby ones as well as the bigger ones. The grading is done at the works, at your yard?
Yes, so everything's all taken out of the field in one sample and size-wise, and then it's back to the pack house for washing. A lot of the potatoes we're digging at the moment are going into storage, so we like to get the potatoes out while the conditions are very good for getting them out, so it's more efficient and it's better for the quality of the potatoes, it's better for the soil and the paddocks for people returning back to get next crops in there. So yeah, we're digging a lot of what we're doing at the moment is going straight to store, and some of it's going in to feed the pack house.